What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason and Joe here, 1973 Deep Dive Week, taking a few months at a time to listen to as many albums as we can from a given year. This time it was 73. We listened to a lot. I've already listed my top 25, and now it is Joe's turn, so I will hand it over to him.
Thank you, Jason. You estimated that we had 12 in common, I believe, between the lists.
13 was my guess.
13 in common. That was a pretty good guesstimate by you. I'm not going to reveal exactly. I'll say it at the end. Let's just jump into it here. You had a good list. I was very happy with many of your albums. Nothing just ridiculous. Maybe the Duncan Brown. That was weird. Everything else pretty good. For me, my number 25 is an album I didn't even like that much 5, 6 months ago. Thought it was kind of not a black mark, but a big step down for this certain artist. But I was wrong. Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only a Piano Player is my number 25. Elton John, 1973. Dude was just on a bender in these early 70s. And that's just how much I love Elton John that this album can creep back on. I even kind of like Daniel now, which I used to hate. And even better than Daniel is High Flying Bird, which is the closest he ever got to Van Morrison. Got the 50s homage of Crocodile Rock. Got incredible strings and orchestration from Paul Buckmaster on Have Mercy on the Criminal. Blues from Baby and Me. It's all great. I kind of overlooked it, probably because of Daniel. But yeah, doing the deep dive. I now really like it. It's just short of 4.5 stars. I did downgrade a couple of things. It is the only only album on my list that isn't 4.5 stars and above. But yeah, it's very good. Number 24, we did these guys, I think this year, maybe early in the year. Grand Hotel from Procol Harum. This is one that was after Robin Trower left the band. They bring in Mick Grabham, and I think he was an even better fit for the sound they're going for. It's very neoclassical, Baroque, very 60s instrumentation. It's ornate and rich and expensive. And the production is just, filled out with as many strings and pianos and organs as they can possibly throw in there. Really love Licorice John, Fires Which Burn Brightly. They're just so grandeur. Just all this piano intertwining is some gospel elements. It's spiritual. It's great. It's just so pompous and almost pretentious in its scope. But the performances are all really great. And yeah, it's a really cool album from them. In a year I didn't find too much to love about Prague. They're gonna kind of bring that up, not counting Pink Floyd, of course, but they're kind of in between. There's no Yes and no Emerson, Lake and Palmer on my list this year. Number 23, a new addition to my list. Really found myself liking this more and more to Jason's chagrin, I'm sure. The Wild, the Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle from Bruce Springsteen is going to be 23. Really where Bruce found his sound. The E Street Band becomes, such an integral part of that sound. It's big and boisterous. Bruce slightly tempers his Bob Dylanisms and that folky sound for a new, unique, big sound that I think really works well for him and the band. And I think side two with Incident on 57th Street, Rosalita Come Out Tonight, and New York City Serenade is pretty perfect as far as rock and roll album sides go. Number 22, so far, not in common with Jason, but that will change now. I got GP from Graham Parsons. Of course, he's going to make my list. The forever underrated and underappreciated Graham Parsons' debut album. He'd been with the International Submarine Band. He was with the Byrds. He was with What's Their Faces, Flying Burrito Brothers. And on this one, he kind of strips back to pretty country sound. I mean, there's rock and a little R&B stuff mixed in, but Uh, Very classic country, cosmic country. Rick Greck and Glenn Hardin, James Burton, Al Perkins, Byron Berline, Emmylou Harris are all on here. And Graham creates just a down home country concoction effortlessly. Updates classics like Streets of Baltimore. We'll see about the Ashes in the Morning. But I think just as good are the originals. She Still Feeling Blue, How Much I've Lied, A Song for You. And it's Graham singing like only he can, that country, full of heart and melancholy, just a perfect sort of hybrid of the country and rock genres. Number 21, Stranded, Roxy Music. I bumped this one up from a high 4 to 4.5 stars. I think it was my number 2, Roxy Music as well. The band gets rid of Brian Eno, and suddenly I love them. Become a great, non-gimmicky rock and roll band with some great art rock and weird tendencies, but at the core I think they're just so much improved thanks to Phil Manzanera really tuning up his guitar work, especially on Amazona. Some killer wailing from Manzanera there. A good rhythm section, very solid. John Gustafson on bass. The addition of electric violin from Eddie Jobson really, fills out the sound. And, Brian Ferry's just one cool ass dude. I love his croon. He really perfects that sound. And, it's an album that really works on so many levels and brings in so many different sounds while still being a really good rock and roll album.
So far, so good, mostly. Two in common, so I'll take those two. Elton and Procol Harum, I think those are 4s for me, so I won't complain about those. Bruce, though, I think, I don't know, 2.5, 3-star album there, so not a fan of that one at all, but other than that, doing fine.
Well, you're not gonna like this one either. My number 20. Well, let me see. I don't think there's anything else on my list past this one that you're really gonna hate. I'm pretty sure you hate this one. Raw Power. Yeah, from the Stooges. Jason
That's
hates.
worse. That's worse than Bruce.
It might be the worst produced album in the history of music. It is a huge turd in the punch bowl when you consider how great like every single other 1973 album sounds. Like you're gonna be hard pressed to find a better sounding year for production between Dark Side and Let's Get It On and everything else. It's just amazing sounding. And this one just sounds like crap. But I do like it. It is just rowdy and raw, full of fire and energy, and some really great guitar work when you can hear it from James Williamson, especially on Search and Destroy, Gimme Danger, Penetration. And I like that unhinged, dangerous vocal work. Iggy Pop sounds like he's just ready to pop off and go nuts and shoot up a bunch of people or something. But I think it works. I think it kind of captures that wild heart of rock and roll. And lyrics like "I'm a street walking cheetah with a heart full of napalm," I think are pretty cool. All right, 19. Moving on here. Eagles, "Desperado." It is one of my all-time favorite ballads. The title track. And I think, like Jason was saying, the band isn't nearly as annoying here as they are elsewhere. And I think it's because they kind of stick to that concept, the outlaws and the Wild West, and it kind of brings them down to earth and kind of cuts off maybe their personalities a little bit. It feels more like a whole band working together and not like a bunch of like loose ends and spare parts and stuff. And it's just a really good old-fashioned country rock record, and it's played incredibly well by everybody. And it's just not annoying. You get none of that Eagles annoyingness, and I think that really helps for that one. Even my mom, who hates the Eagles, likes Desperado.
Yeah, I'm glad that got. I wasn't sure when I was talking about it. I couldn't read you, but I'm glad we share that one.
Was that my number one? I guess it was my number two. I guess I had Hotel California number one, but they're about the same for me, honestly. And I can definitely see why people don't like the Eagles. Number 18, another one in common, Band on the Run. This one, I've always liked this album, but I grew to appreciate it more during this deep dive. And the hits are great. Everyone loves Band on the Run, the song, Jet. But really, dug pretty much everything on this album. There's really no weak cuts for me. I don't like Red Rose Speedway very much at all. But I think everything Let Me Roll It, 1985. I think it's Paul's best full, slate of writing, full slate of songs since Abbey Road. If we ever do a Paul McCartney solo, it's going to be my number one. It's fun and whimsical and beautiful and full of melodies that only Paul McCartney can do in his slate, probably. Number 17. I think this, let me check real quick here. This is the highest ranking album that I didn't know before this deep dive. And it may surprise you to find out who it is, because I'm on the record hating this guy in the past, but 72 kind of turned a new leaf. And it's Lou Reed with Berlin, which, I mean, everyone was saying, oh, don't listen to Berlin, Joe, you'll hate it. Well, I didn't. But it makes sense for me to like it when you consider who was involved in the record. First off, Bob Ezrin produced it. Dude bats 1,000 in these type of situations. Anytime there's like a rock opera by kind of a crazy person being, put on, you get Bob Ezrin to produce. It's a hit. It's great. You got Steve Hunter and Dick Wagner from Alice Cooper Band, Jack Bruce, Tony Levin, I think his debut performance on one song, Steve Winwood, Ainsley Dunbar, BJ Wilson. It's just a murderer's row of just awesome talent. And, I liked Transformer a lot because it was Mick Ronson and David Bowie helping out. I mean, this is just as strong lineup in my opinion. And, the songs themselves, dark and tragic and just like horrific, but it just works. Lou's there, he's singing in his weird, detached, kind of only Lou can sing way. And I don't love it. I don't love him as a singer, but I think as a whole, it really works as, this grand production. So I got to give it to Lou. Number 16 is one I thought would make Jason's list. It did not. Goat's Head Soup from the Rolling Stones. This is the band settling into middle age, lots of drugs. They're fat and happy and just content to be the most popular rock and roll band in the world. And it's still loaded with hits though. Do 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 do. Heartbreaker, Angie. Great songs. 100 Years Ago, loved it. Made my top 10 Rolling Stones week. I love the organ and the funkiness and the shifts in mood. Mick Taylor killing it on guitar. Lots of wah on that one. Love Keeps Singing on Coming Down Again. Kind of sounds like an Elton John cut a little bit. Winner has some great strings on it. And, there's a couple songs on there that are kind of like rote Rolling Stones by the numbers stuff, but those top shelf S rank songs are all killer, so you forgive the ordinariness of some of the other ones.
Yep. No Stones on my list, but they will be making an appearance on my songs list for sure.
Good to hear. Good to hear. I'd assume Do 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 Heartbreaker will be on your list since it's your favorite Stone song. Otherwise, you're just a liar. Number 15. Great record from the Isley Brothers, 3+3. This is the first one with 6 members of the band. They expanded from their original 3 to 6, and could help explain why the album sounds so big and full. You get That Lady parts 1 and 2. Two of the best covers you'll hear in Summer Breeze and Listen to the Music. Ernie Isley just absolutely shredding on guitar here. Just amazing stuff. And the production, killer. Just, it sounds so damn good. And, you got immaculate lead and harmonies from Ron and the boys. So real cool. Number 14, Jason questioned whether this would be on my list. Of course, it's on my list. Gene Clark, Roadmaster. Is it a cohesive studio album? No, it is not. But it doesn't really have to be because it's Gene. It's multiple sessions recorded with different people assembled onto an album by the label. You got two tracks, She's the Kind of Girl and One in a Hundred, that were recorded with the original Byrds members for some, unreleased project that they were doing before the official reunion. You had one track that was just Gene plus the Flying Burrito Brothers. And you had 8 tracks from a session that featured Clarence White on guitar, Chris Etheridge, Sneaky Pete, Michael Clark, and a couple other big names in the country rock scene. It doesn't matter that it's just a bunch of tracks thrown together. It's shows off Gene Clark's genius. It's on full display here. You have the definitive version of Full Circle Song, one of his absolute masterpieces, In a Misty Morning, the re-recording of She Don't Care About Time, which I think was the first time it would have been released. I think the original came out later, maybe, or maybe it was a B-side. I can't remember. But it's a Gene Clark bonanza here, and it's just all amazing. It's just stuff that only he could do. Number 13, I'm gonna go back to Bob Ezrin, that is, for Billion Dollar Babies from Alice Cooper. I think this is his finest album. It is dark and demented. It's humorous. It's weird. It kicks off with one of my most favoriteest covers of all time, Hello Hooray, which is originally recorded by Judy Collins and written by some weird Canadian guy named Rolf. And it fits perfectly into Cooper. And this is Alice Cooper, the band, not just Alice Cooper, the solo guy, into his over his repertoire. You got great tracks like Elected, which the Ramones ripped off for Sedated. The title cut, which brings in Donovan, of all people, for a demented little duet. You got Raped and Freezing. No More Mr. Nice Guy. It's just tons of killer tunes here. The guitars are awesome. Steve Hunter, who was on Berlin with Lou Reed, comes in for some just face melting solos, especially on that title cut. Just awesome stuff there. And Bob Ezrin's production is always just full of life and sound. He works great with Maniacs, and more proof of that for Billion Dollar Babies.
Yeah, I dug that one. I think I have it at 4 stars. Also will appear on my songs list.
To see which one will pop up there.
Hey, I wanted to take a quick intermission from the list to let everybody know that the next deep dive that we are going to be doing on the channel is going to be 1984. And those videos will be coming hopefully sometime in March. So you've got a good bit of time if you want to listen along with us and play along. And if you want to make the playing along part even more fun, consider joining our Discord, which you can get to through our Patreon. Only $1 a month gets you on the Discord. A lot of people there that watch the channel that have similar tastes, different tastes, unique tastes. They can give you a lot of great recommendations. You can recommend stuff to them, chat about the stuff you've listened to, what you liked, what you didn't like. It's a lot of fun. Hope you'll consider, and we will see you in 1984.
Number 12, maybe lower than some people expect, but I've never gotten to 5 stars with it. Let's Get It On from Marvin Gaye. And it is his most sexiest, most sensual album, even as the title track. And I feel like you said in your video, that's the only track people know from this album. Like, I know there were other singles released, but never once in the history of my listening to the radio or Sirius or anything have I heard them played. Like, I'm pretty sure Distant Lover was a single. Never once heard it played, never once even heard it mentioned, which is a shame because it's great. Please Don't Stay After You Go Away. Awesome. Love the playful You Sure Love to Ball. They do some cool multi-tracking on his vocals, brings out so much depth and tone. Production, crystal clear. Love the bass and piano and drums. It was just, so influential on so many future R&B and funk albums. Just a landmark recording and sexiness from Marvin there. Number 11, pronounced Leonard Skinnerd from Leonard Skinnerd. And Freebird, Simple Man, Tuesday's Gone, Give Me Three Steps. Need I say more? I don't, but I will. And yeah, those songs have been overplayed. People look down on the band because the zombie of Leonard Skinner has been performing and making new music since whatever, 1990s. But none of that matters. This is the original. This is the real Leonard Skinner. And I think these are all fantastic anthemic Southern rock songs. There's a reason that they're played on every classic rock station and every sporting arena by every cover band. They're timeless tunes. And that's not all for me. I love the opener. I Ain't the One, just a barn burner. A lockstep bridge is kick ass. Bass and drums here are astounding. Love Poison Whiskey, that killer down home funk to it. Even the little, throwaway almost mandolin driven Zeppelin inspired Mississippi Kid, I think is real cool. So for me, not just the big hits, I think these are all great. And you don't hear too much praise for him, but I think Ronnie Van Zant is just one of the best singers. The way he uses, like the country kind of the woo and the honky tonk vocal stylings that he throws into this rock milieu and stew, just totally unique. I think he's probably the best part of the band. Would have loved to see him do some country records. If he had survived, but unfortunately he did not. The plane crashed in 77. Number 10, Aladdin Sane. This is Bowie doing Ziggy again, but Ziggy Goes to America, I guess is what they always called it. Which is odd because there's also like a bunch of jazz piano from Mike Garson and a stated Rolling Stones influence on some of these songs. So those people not that American, but whatever, that's what they always said. The songs uniformly excellent, and I think Bowie's right. And some of the most interesting songs of his career, the jazzy, seductive Aladdin Sane, the raucous Watch That Man, 50s inspired Driving Saturday, Glammy Panic in Detroit, the James Bond wannabe Lady Grinning Soul. Just a really cool mix of stuff. Mick Ronson, awesome guitar as always. Bowie's singing is incredible. Just works across the board. I don't love it as much as Ziggy Stardust, but I don't think anyone does really. But it's Ziggy's here and it's not that far off. 5 stars, by the way, for that one.
Skinner, 4.5, 5.
Skinner 5, I guess. It's right on the border. I did downrate it. Okay, Skinner's 4.5, sorry.
So you have 10 fives.
Yeah.
One fewer than I did.
And some of these could be upgraded in the future, but for now, I'm going with 10. Number 9, one, maybe I wasn't surprised not to see it. I was hoping it would sneak on. Holland by the Beach Boys. I think it's their most underrated, most underappreciated record in a catalog with a couple underrated and underappreciated gems. Sail On Sailor, written by Brian Wilson and Van Dyke Parks, sung by Lonnie Chaplin. Might be might be their last like really transcendent single. I think it's just beautiful, gorgeous. The harmonies at the end there, just my God. Love the Traitor from Carl Wilson, just a big epic composition. Reminds me of something off of Surf's Up. I think the California Saga, beautiful little trilogy, very different, unique tunes that celebrates and also expands the Beach Boys sound. It has some of Carl's best writing, and I love Dennis's contributions as well. Steamboat and Only With You, both understated and lovely. If you love the Beach Boys, I just can't see not loving this album. I waited way too long to listen to it because everyone, all the critics were like, Holland's not any good. They were wrong. It is great.
That's another one. I have a lot of songs that aren't in my top 25 albums. That's got an entry as well.
Yeah, tough. The songs list was, my God, that is so hard. Hate leaving off. I mean, it's like 200 deep for me. I'm still like, I love this song. It's my 197th favorite of 1973. Number eight, an album you did not care for too much, but I touches my soul. Heart Food by Judy Sill. And I just love these doomed cosmic country artists like no other. It's just something about them. If they die too early, if they're underappreciated in their lifetimes, I'm gonna love them. Nobody wielded biblical imagery like old Jude's here. I don't think anyone outside of Bach was able to imbue the spiritual into popular music like she did. Um, Bookending the album, except for the last cut, which is this weird little tune called The Jig. But the two main pieces, the pillars of the album, the Kiss and the Donor, I get chills listening to them. The way she weaves in the orchestration, the imagery, the biblical, just spiritual nature of them. I'm not even a religious person, but like my something about those two that just absolutely give me chills. And then there's some awesome cuts. There's a Rugged Road, the Pearl, the Phoenix, Down in the Valleys are low. Just like simple, beautiful, touched by God kind of music that just it's amazing. Even at number eight, I feel like it's too low. But there's some like weird production stuff, and it's not perfect, but it's just it's in a whole different realm for me.
So I guess 13 in common. I think right now we are at 7 matches and you have 7 left. So we have to match 6 of the last 7. Let's see if we can do it. What do you got?
Well, my number seven is a match with you, Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd. I feel like this will be a lot of people's number ones of the year. Reckon it's most critics' number ones. I think it was Cramsey's number one, but it's not mine. And I don't think it's Jason's either, is what I wrote. But it did make his list. And it is a magnificent 5-star record. I listened to this album thousands of times. I used to listen to it every night as I was falling asleep. And so maybe I'm over familiar with the material a little bit, but my God, is it just a work of art? And everything is a work of art. The production, the engineering, the playing, even the lyrics. Roger Waters, before he went totally nutty, just some of my favorite of this whole era. I think probably it's hard to really make this statement, but I think he was probably the best lyricist of any of the prog associated songwriters. Something like Time is just so understated and brilliant. And you kind of lose sight of that. You kind of just, I don't think a lot of people really pay attention to the lyrics on this, but they are incredible. The music, the soundscapes, it's a perfect record, but I'm kind of like you where it's just like something is missing where I don't like really feel that much for it. Like it's almost untouchable, like this like obelisk that's like perfect, but you can never really hold it or feel it or love it. But it is basically perfect. So I will not raise an eyebrow if it's your number ones and you, the audience. It's a good album. Number six, another one in common with Jason. Could we do it? Could he be absolutely right about how many he might? Yeah, that'd be tough for me to swallow if he gets it exactly right. Number six, House of the Holy, Led Zeppelin. It's one of those albums where I think people are like, oh, it has the crunge on it, so it's gonna, it's not 5 stars. The Crunge and Hot Dog, I think, are pretty much the only two Zeppelin songs that people are like, well, not a big fan of the Crunge or Hot Dog, but I like Jason, think the Crunge is great. Obvious James Brown homage, and it's perfect. It kicks butt. The whole album kicks butt. They can do anything they want. And this is definitely their weirdest, most diverse, probably their most interesting set of songs. You got Jamaica, so this Jamaican little thing. You got the Rain Song, which is one of their very few love songs, and a challenge from George Harrison, who said they couldn't write love songs. So they wrote a perfect love song. You got classics like The Ocean, Over the Hills, and Far Away. And it's another one where, it's probably what was my fifth favorite Zeppelin album or something like that. And it's still all the way up at number six for what I consider a top three year of all time. And it's kind of like Dark Side, where I don't have like an overwhelming love for it. It's like a whole, it's weird. It's hard to explain. It's like I love every song on it, but I can't like accept it into my heart as like my favorite or this like personal album for me. And it took me a while to warm up to The Song Remains the Same and No Quarter. Back in the day, I didn't love those songs. I thought they were a little too weird, but I think they're great now. And it's Zeppelin, so it rules. And yeah, it's Zeppelin. All right, so top five. I believe this one of the few big time classics that was not on his list. I think you covered pretty much all the huge ones.
I think I know what's coming.
Yeah. Quadrophenia.
That's not what I thought.
Ah, was there another one you didn't have coming on your list?
I thought you were gonna say Selling England.
Oh crap, I forgot about Selling England. Yeah, that's not on my list. I don't think it's very good, so people are gonna be pissed about that one. But really, I'll slag it when we get to the Genesis remaster someday. Quadrophenia. Epic comes to mind when describing this sprawling, big, it's as big as the sea, just loaded with everything that Pete Townsend wanted to do. It's got a convoluted, complex storyline. It's got just massive instrumentation, layers and layers of instruments, some really cool early synth work. You got the vocal dynamic of Townsend and Daltrey, and I think it just crams everything that made The Who one of the most interesting and ambitious rock bands in the world during the late 60s and early 70s. It has some of my all-time just favorite performances. John Entwistle, bass, and The Real Me is just ridiculous. The legend was that he did it all in one take. I don't know if I believe that because it's just insane. I would put this as, maybe top one or two or three greatest vocal performances in history. Roger Daltrey on Love, Rain, or Me. And perhaps my all-time favorite chord progression in that chorus when it descends down is just, I love it so much. Also, one of the great pick slides in history at the very end. And I think Pete Townsend really puts forth his best, most beautifully dark, tragic lyrics and some really cool just guitar playing. Nothing too flashy, but just great kind of rhythm leads, layering. And Keith Moon, some of the best drums ever. It just rules. There's just so many cool things in it. The horns in 515, the twisted Dr. Jimmy. It's just got everything you could possibly want on a rock and roll album. Number four, Countdown to Ecstasy, Steely Dan. And I would say of all the albums on this list, I've listened to Countdown to Ecstasy more than any other. They are my favorite band, Steely Dan is. And I think on this one, it's just the perfect blend of that brainy, production obsessed side of Fagen and Becker and the thrilling kind of live performance and virtuosity of Jeff Baxter and Denny Diaz and Jim Hoder. It's fussy and like finely fabricated, but also just like messy and ostentatious and prolific. And the amount of incredible guitar parts on Bodhisattva and My Old School and the Boston Rag puts 99% of bands in this year to shame. And despite Fagen and Becker being like these like 70-year-olds in a 20-year-old's body, and kind of like hating everything, like there's so many good hooks here. It's not purely production like they kind of would move to. I still love them. But the lyrics are whip smart, weird, disturbing, funny, filled with immoral and unlikable characters, just like all good Dan albums are. Top three, top three. Trying to remember what my original list was. I think it was Countdown, Quadrophenia, Houses, and then two more. So here's an intruder onto the list. And is it the same spot as yours? Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath? You got it four? Five, four, four. Yeah. My number three, so I still maintain my metal crown, thank God. And I hate to break to everyone, but Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath is the greatest Black Sabbath album. And people are gonna bitch and moan about the self-titled being the birthplace of metal and how Paranoid defined the genre. It's like blah blah blah. This is better. Like this is the peak, the pinnacle of Ozzy and Bill Ward and Geezer Butler and Tony Iommi. This is just like them, height of their powers. Ozzy sounds just absolutely incredible on this album. I don't think Tony Iommi ever wrote better riffs than the title track or Sabracadabra or Killing Yourself to Live. They're just so twisty and they just go off on these directions that you never see coming. First, like the first time you listen to this, you were just like stunned at the weird directions that these songs go, and not even in like a really like dark metal way. Like they do like these kind of like Latin rhythms sometimes, and they get like soft and pretty, and it's just a remarkable display of range. These songs are just immense compositions and they're crushingly powerful, but also like light and sprightly sometimes too. It's just incredible, and it's never like stupid metal. Like it's never like just kind of like immature, like how metal can sometimes get. Like this stays above that, and I think it's brainier than people give it credit for. And the songs feel weighty and necessary and filled with the agonies of real life and love. And I think it's a better album for it. So top two, number two, Intervisions, Stevie Wonder. I moved this up to a perfect 10, one of my 14 or 15 perfect 10s when we did the Stevie Wonder discography. It almost overtook Talking Book, which is my favorite of 72 and my favorite Stevie Wonder. And, in some ways, it does up the ante over Talking Book because, how do you follow a critically beloved statement like that? You expand your artistry to include uh, powerful cultural and social critiques. And, he becomes more than just a songwriter, more than just an artist. He's like Marvin Gaye in 71 with What's Going On. He becomes one of the figureheads of this social commentary and critiques, and he does it while maintaining his artistry, maintaining his popularity, maintaining his melodicism and everything else. But he just builds and expands upon the sound of Talking Book, and it's a very outward looking album, which is ironic considering it's called Intervisions. But you get great funky jazzy stuff like Too High, basically a broken fairy tale and Living for the City. Perfect pop, just beautiful Golden Lady. You got the funky Higher Ground. He takes shots at Richard Nixon on He's Mr. Know-It-All. Album didn't reinvent Stevie Wonder, but it definitely consolidated his strengths and saw him, looking in new directions and just expanding his artistry. And I'll just say this because I always like to say it. I think Wonder's the best vocalist of all time. He's a top five melodicist. I think he's the most underrated drummer in music history, incredible keyboardist, clavichordist. In short, I think he's the greatest all-around solo artist of all time, and nobody in the 70s was even close. So there you go. But it's still not my favorite album of the 1973. Whew. Number one, the opulent, decadent, epic Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Still my number one, still the one. Even though it's got Jamaica Jerk Off on it, it's still my favorite album of the year. And I just think it is. an imperfectly perfect double album display of Elton John and Bernie Taupin and Davy Johnstone and Dee Murray and Nigel Olsson and Gus Dudgeon, immense talent at the top of their game. This is really where they kind of coalesce into this just unstoppable hit-making machine. Elton's on the marquee, and it's Elton John, but there was so much more to him and his sound than, I think what most people expect, which is like, okay, Elton John, oh yeah, and Bernie Taupin wrote the lyrics, but you just have this incredible tight unit playing these songs, and Davy Johnstone will be forever underrated. His guitar work on here is just magnificent. That backwards guitar solo on I've Seen That Movie Too is amazing. The work on Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding, just really powerful riffs. You got so much great drum and bass work. I think Gus Dudgeon really found that drum sound that I love so much. And it's not like a perfect album because it has maybe a couple too many songs, maybe a couple too many songs about how terrible women are on side three. But like all, great double albums, it works. It needs all of these songs to become something greater than the sum of its parts. And I just love how all over the place he is. You got the prog of Funeral for a Friend. You got a really pretty, heartfelt pain to Marilyn Monroe and Candle in the Wind, the cinematic Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. You got the pub stomp of Saturday Night. It's all right for fighting. It's muscular and lean. Spacey, Benny and the Jets. You got some 50s meets the future. I don't even know what the hell. And Your Sister Can't Twist. But you can rock and roll. Got some country with Roy Rogers, and just yeah, so many great moments. And I kind of even like Jamaica Jerk Off. I don't think it's terrible. It's sort of like the Crunge and Hot Dog for Elton John. People are like, oh well, got Jamaica Jerk Off on it, but I think it's a decent song, pretty good, pretty okay. So yeah, it's a messy, overstuffed, oversaturated album, but I just love it so much, and I don't skip a damn song. So, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, my favorite album of 1973, still to this day.
13. Nailed
Yeah,
it.
you got exactly right. I got to stop talking so much in Discord.
Yeah, overall, I mean, I knew Goodbye Yellow Brick Road would be the winner. Judy still in the top 10 is a little surprising. I knew it would make the list, but I didn't quite expect it to be number 8. Pretty much else, I don't think there's any other huge surprises. Lou Reed would have been if I didn't see your social media post about it. Raw Power, I think even knowing that you liked it, I'm a little surprised that not only made it, but made it up to number 20.
I had a lot of movement at the bottom. I really just things were all over the place. And going back to your list of this, there's a couple I didn't hear. I didn't hear Buckingham Nicks because I refused to listen to anything on YouTube. And I didn't hear Smoke or You Drink. We're still alive and well. But I think everything else outside of 2 albums was in my top 50. So even the ones that didn't make my list were pretty close.
I'll take it.
And I
That's
do
good.
think the last album I listened to was A Wizard, a True Star for this little exercise, and really wish I had more time for that one because that one is really cool. I gotta admit.
It's a hard one to take in a single listen.
Yes. Yeah, I need some time to really diagram that one out.
Well, those are our albums list. We still have our songs list on the way, so stay tuned. Make sure you are subscribed, hit the bell, get notifications when those videos drop. Let us know what you think of our lists. Drop your own list in the comments, hit the like button, all that. Check description for Patreon, merch, social media. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.